Hey y'all, and hey y'all. That's right. It is Texas fully loaded. It is that time of the time of the week to get going, rolling and strolling. This is your host, the Bacon Master. We can't find Sandra. Apparently, she went to Hawaii for the weekend, and since that time frame, she has just been AWOL. Actually, nope. We've had some good times along the here in Texas along the border. We're actually matched up with Border Network News. Most of you guys know Anthony Aguero, formerly known by Michael as Antonio. We don't know why they tried to rename him Anthony, but anyhow, they did. They've been exposing a lot of the illegals that have been coming in to this Biden invasion. And a lot of things have been directed on the state of Texas, which is absolutely incorrect and untrue. And we'll probably break into some of that. But the first thing we're going to do, actually, the most fun for the second half, we're going to have Jacquline Toboroff on. And she has got this little book that she put together. And would you believe it or not, Sandra Whitten has her own chapter within that book. It's about amazing moms who are activated, who run and gun and get something done for the for the nation here, for what we need. Anyway, man, what a weekend! I literally spent my whole entire weekend in traffic, and when I say traffic, I mean traffic. There we go, a little bit more light. Went to Taos, New Mexico. Great time. My company's opening up a office up there, so we will now be rolling and going. And bottom line, traffic in New Mexico. There wasn't even a cow to be seen during this traffic mess. But there was 3 hours of just wait time from Santa Fe to Roswell, New Mexico. And believe it or not, it's exactly right. Traffic. That's all we had, was nothing but. So anyway, Texas, well, I would say Texas is burning, but it's only hotter than hell down here. Maui, as you guys saw in Hawaii, now that's some fire for you. So, don't know what to tell you there. That is where the wildland urban interface needed to have some things happen. There's a lot of skepticism going on, though, because a lot of the area that got burned, well, that was area that Oprah Winfrey was trying to purchase. She did have a lot of land down there that luckily did not burn. But right now, as it sits, there's over 1,300 people that are still missing. They have confirmed dead up towards almost 100. I'm not going to give any specific numbers because it's, who knows what the heck is going to be happening there. But we were hoping old Sandra was going to pop in here. We know that she's watching, but we don't know what she's watching from or even what she looks like. She doesn't have to come on the camera. But if you do the deedly do like we did back in Wayne's World, well, we may have her anyway. So this morning's breakfast is brought to you by V8. Our good buddy Anthony Aguero has been he's been down here on the border. He came down with a group. They've since parted. Anthony obviously finds all the hot spots, and anyway, with that being said, we've still got illegals being ushered in by the U.S. Border Patrol, and they're being ushered in at an alarming rate. We're still seeing, I believe we're still seeing somewhere to the tune of, is it 6,000 a day? It's between 6 and 10,000 a day that are coming out through the southern ports of the United States of America. Folks, the Biden invasion is here. The Biden crime family is what we like to call it. They are doing their best to ruin the role of America in the world today. All of the folks getting to apply for asylum after they've received all their benefits. How about that? How about that? We're seeing that there's, with what's happening down on the border, here down on the border, we're seeing that there's an actual, we do have the ability to place the United States of America's government. So the USA government, whether it's going to be DHS, State Department, or whatnot, has been working with non-governmental organizations with your tax dollars. Your tax dollars are paying for this invasion, and they are specifically working with these folks to say, hey, come on here, we'll give you free this and free that. So everything that you've worked hard for, you're paying for this. Let's roll that one out right there. Oh, check that out. So everything that's been happening thus far, the folks that are coming in, the state of Texas is picking up the tab. We've talked about some of those areas, the colonias. Some folks are calling those Abbottville, and that's not exactly a fair statement. There are benefactors that have been obviously putting money in to our campaign coffers, both Democrat and Republican, but they like to gear in and put the only person who's actually doing anything, which is going to be Governor Abbott and his crew. You guys know that we have a personal relationship with the border czar. He's just, him and his men are doing a bang up job. At the same time, I mean, with what they've got, fixing to go back into court, it's one thing after the other. It's pretty comical how the balls went into the river. But as the balls went into the river, what don't we have? We don't have the illegal aliens crossing in that area anymore. And keep in mind, that's only 1,000 feet of the river that's covered. We're finding that there are landowners that have been participating in the invasion to the tune that they're even getting paid. Which cartel are they being paid by? We're currently waiting on the actual physical information to get that because we're actually looking for the paycheck. Once that happens, we'll have an exclusive story right now on what exactly happened, who the transaction took place, and why the illegals were crossing in certain specific areas. You will find that the federal government, the agents of the federal government and the federal government have specifically been signed on to this invasion for quite some time. And the state of Texas, well, they're doing their part. They're doing their bit. So there's been a nuisance that's been created. The governor obviously has been working for a little while to undo what the federal government has put in place. And so, well, that's where we're gonna have a hit. The work that we did up in New Mexico, that was the most fun for me, because I was at I like to call it North Texas. North Texas is as most of you guys know, back in the 1836 time frame and prior, North Texas was actually in the Colorado, Wyoming area. So I like to say I was in Taos, New Mexico / the former Republic of Texas, and that's that's where we were. The temperatures up there, I went from 111 degrees here in Texas to, I want to say it was about, got down to 69 degrees. So at one point I was reading on my thermometer, 69, 68 degrees, somewhere in there. It was perfect. Lots of fun and excitement, lots of good people. I hate to say it though, but there was a lot of weed. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that they just like walking around and smoking that stuff all over the freaking place. We were it's bacon time. Is Texas a state of emergency, and how does it work? That's from Texas Fully Loaded. Well, heck, we've been in a state of emergency. We've been in a state of invasion, a declared state of emergency, declared state of invasion for what is it, over 2 years now? Well, the state of emergency due to COVID since 2020. And in some areas, technically, that has ever been taken down. Part of what we're seeing down here is now the back and forth. Now that folks that have left the federal government, or some of them are going to work for state government, some of them are just retiring, getting the heck out of the job. Now that we're seeing that folks are starting to shine up a lot of the truth, we're catching some of the media is discussing the Biden crime family's issues and their woes. The invasion is a treasonous, traitorous event. We've not had any articles of impeachment that have been taken up in the Congress. They've been offered, but there's nothing on the docket. We are not seeing anything to the tune that Nancy Pelosi did twice with Donald Trump over speculation, allegation, and obviously with the three-letter agency of the Federal Bureau of Instigation. They have not, they didn't produce any forthright evidence, Steele dossier, all that kind of stuff. However, we have millions upon millions of new invaders in the United States. Some of these folks, they need a country. They need a place to go to. And what has happened with these folks? They're being ushered in. There's no vetting. The whole American security policy has gone by the wayside. There is, I don't know what to say. For those of us that have fought for this country, have put our lives on the line and gone to war and secured other countries' borders and boundaries, that ain't happening here. We're finding with the Federal Bureau of Instigation, they could care less. They're not looking at anything. The federal government's split. It's at war with itself. The FBI, they've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. The State Department, the good, the bad, and the ugly. General Austin, General Milley, we've got the Pentagon folks and all those guys. They don't even know if they're going to if they're waking up as a man or a woman from one day to the next. The United States of America federal government is so discombobulated right now. It is unfreaking believable. Totally unbelievable. The happenings that are going on are literally of epic proportions. The amount of folks that are coming into this country right now at the rate that they're coming in is just verifiably unbelievable. Europe, they obviously had their mass migration, immigration, illegal immigration problem. What happened with them, though, the EU, one country would allow them in, and then bam, they're all over the place. Met with a couple of our friends from Austria a week or two back, and what did they have to tell us? The Ukrainians are coming in. The refugees from the Ukraine are coming in. The people over in Europe wish that war would just stop, or at least wish that we would stop funding it as the American taxpayers. Because it all boils down to, guess what, folks? It's your money. That's right. They know how to better spend your money. The hard-earned money that you work for, that they tax and they take. When we fought for the independence of a nation, we fought to get rid of a king, and we traded it for what? Yeah, 1,000 more. That is correct. Now you have everyone from elected officials to the bureaucrats, which you cannot get out of office. Those folks have all been traded to be your new kings. Well, I say your new kings. This has been going on for quite some time. Meanwhile, Congress is investigating aliens. They're investigating illegal aliens. They're investigating Donald Trump. They're not investigating the Biden crime family. Pretty much, we can have a full investigation about your anus, and we wouldn't even get any further clear than the insertion that needs to happen. So, anyway, the folks that we have coming on, we have some young ladies who are fixing to be hitting here. I want to say at the top of the hour at 11. Of poor Sandra was rushing to get herself into the makeup tent. She's had quite a time getting into. She's had quite a time whenever she um, was rolling back towards Laredo. Obviously, the traffic there, the bridge, the trade, up in this direction here, they physically have taken up here in where I'm located. They have physically taken the route of heading through. They've headed through some of those areas of private property where they're crossing. They're not crossing. The illegal aliens are not crossing at the bridges, and they're being welcomed by the federal government agents that are allowing that to happen. So right now we do have the federal government that is participating in the destruction of private property. And is there any payout, any in the future, any time at all? Believe it or not, people are getting paid whenever their stuff is getting damaged. Others are not. Others are not. We've got crop damages. We've got crop damages. We've got property damage, and then we have to pay to get them to wherever they're going to go. At first, y'all did hear me whenever Alan West was running and things were moving with his campaign. I was very disheartened with the fact that we were busing people everywhere until it hit me. Oh, they're upset that they're getting the sanctuary cities were upset that Greg Abbott was sending them the illegal aliens. And I think it was at that point whenever I finally saw their reaction, the method to his madness. And I've got to give him a big, huge attaboy for that. And then, of course, the people he's had in charge, from Mike Banks to we've had some representatives that have come out here in Texas, and they have physically been able to move themselves forward. They have physically been able to work with us on what we're actually going to try and pass in some bills and whatnot. I've talked to several of our state senators. Believe it or not, I spent some good time with some New Mexico Democrats in their Senate, their Senate and in their House. Now these are moderates, and if you know how politics works, everybody likes to gin up the Republicans and Democrats against each other. But whenever you're in a stronghold, a Democrat stronghold, you'll find that some of your most staunchest Republicans are wearing the D label. Now, they're not excited with their party, much like a lot of Republicans aren't excited with theirs. The Republican Party will stab you in the back. The Democrat Party is thicker than thieves and stronger than ever, and they are moving hard to the left. Whereas the Republican Party, well, they're moving to the left also. So a third party would have been great, but it's there's no chance because you have to have the other two parties that approve of it through legislation. Not going to see it happen. Now you'll see a more independent movement, and bringing the politics into this. This is where I'm getting to. The policies that these folks are putting forward are, the moderate Democrats are being run out of their party, whereas we are, whereas the Republicans are it's just a weak party. Period. They are totally, they're ineffective. They're not making things happen. We've got more and more jumping on the bandwagon, and as the bandwagon is getting jumped on, we're finding that, well, to be honest with you, we're completely and totally finding that they are not, they're not up to par. We've got all these new folks. I call it the grift. If you want to run for Congress, you just need to move to a district. You don't need to know that district. That's exactly what they're pushing. It's all about the money. It's all about the campaign consulting. It's all about the campaign consulting cash. It's what the consultants are making, what they're getting. Miss Patty, good morning to you. We see you rolling in here. your girl will be coming on here a little bit later at the bottom of the hour. Obviously, we're going to have our little commercial break, but at the same time, we're physically we've transformed into what we're seeing. There's a few folks that have decided to come out and jump into the mix. As you guys have seen, we've had Sandra and I are on a committee, on an exploratory committee for one of our Texas sheriffs. He has formed an exploratory committee and is following all of the FEC rules that you can think of, and has formed an exploratory committee for Tony Gonzalez's seat of CD23. This is an individual. His name is Thaddeus Cleveland. If you have the ability, check him out. Thaddeus Cleveland. It's www.thaddeusfortexas.com. He is currently the sheriff of Terrell County, has lived there all of his life, obviously with the exception of birth, because they don't have a hospital. Obviously, with the exception of birth, his stint in the Air Force, I think he spent 9 or 10 years away with the Border Patrol, but who's lived there that whole entire time. This would be the first person who has a shot at hitting it that has not been a carpetbagger since the early 2000s. We saw Will Hurd, who's now running for president. He's got his name in the hat. He wasn't originally from there. When he got out of the CIA and became congressman, and you'll find, we're finding a lot of former agents. Tony Gonzalez was a former agent of the Navy. When I say agent, he was an employee. Sailed the world. He sailed the ocean blue probably since 1492. However, what did we see with him? We didn't see him in his district. He was censured by his party. There were a lot of attributes that they put into the censure resolution. He was censured by 3/4 of his counties in his district, and the ones that didn't censure him, well, they didn't have parties. They had sole individuals that they didn't want to be the ones to go on record. And when it came time for the state party to take up that censure, what did they do? The vote was 57 to 6. There was 5 that voted no, and there was 1 that abstained. But 57 of the SREC, the State Republican Executive Committee members, censured for the first time ever a United States congressman. History in the making. We have a new gun guy, Brandon Herrera. He's an individual who just came out. Obviously, a big social media platform movement guy. He's got a gun company that he moved to San Antonio back in 2019. So new to the area. Does he live in the district? Who knows? But San Antonio has played a pivotal role in screwing up CD23 for years. And of course, y'all saw with the last redistricting that came out of DC with the consultants and with Kevin Brady, we're finding that, well, bottom line is it's politics as usual for these people, because they have the people they want to run. They, line item by line item, they go voter to voter. They don't allow they're playing the DC games. This is where the Republicans and the Democrats lose against the establishment. So while they're playing the DC games, what are they not playing? The parties are not playing the hearts and minds. They're not sharing their beliefs. They're not growing it. So right now, the big guys up in DC and in Austin, they're keeping everybody whipped up, pissed off at each other. And that's how they're going to win. That's how they're going to do it. So we're seeing Texas is at a pivotal hit. Obviously, keep Texas red and all those kind of things. You know what? Texas has been bleeding far enough. We need to get the moderates out of the party. The hard right that I'm talking to, the fun part is if those people would just talk to folks and they'll find out about the 80% they agree with. We have folks that are on the other side that they don't have to join the party, but they would vote our way. So here we are, fixing to head into a primary season for the Republicans, and all the way up to the presidency. And we're already seeing the gashing and gnashing of teeth. The far left Democrats, socialists, have done an awesome job at keeping the party split. keeping the anger and everything moving on. Meanwhile, we have things like the colonias of Plum Grove, of Liberty County, because it has far exceeded Plum Grove. It's moving out to areas that people don't want to discuss. We're constantly talking with law enforcement. You know, we're part of a consulting group that works with the task force out there, and there are some pretty egregious things that are happening. So I'm going to move us towards a break. One of our fun, most exciting commercials, and then I will be right back. We're waiting for the Sandra Witten Showtime hour. And we are back. We are still waiting for our guest of the hour to so we can talk about a Supermom Activated. Again, we have had way too much fun and excitement past several days, and a fun commercial. So we have we do need to thank our sponsors, Vietnam Veterans for America, the Montgomery County Tea Party, Miss Patty, yours truly. I'll be speaking there on Labor Day. We'll actually physically be talking about the colonias. We'll be able to tell you the truth about what's happening. We can actually name names and times and events that have happened that have led up to what's going on. The furthest thing that people need to remember is that this didn't just happen overnight. This has been going on for decades, and a couple of people, there were groups that went out there to Liberty County, to fight what was happening there from Houston, from East Montgomery County. We have been out there. Folks didn't want to help because it wasn't on their radar. It was over there until they figured out, hey, wait a second, there's 100,000 illegal aliens plus. And whenever you talk about these illegal aliens, remember, most of these people right now currently are slaves. They have been brought into the United States to hide in the shadows for an agenda that is meant to take over our voting, that is meant to take over our society, that is meant to take over our taxpayer base. What we have happening in Liberty County is going on all through the United States, in other states as well. So this illegal immigration problem that Congress has not chosen to fix isn't going to get any better. The election issues that we're having, I actually met with some New Mexico Democrats. It was a very fun time for me, because we agreed on election integrity. We agreed on solidifying our elections. Matter of fact, Daniel Soto was one of the senators I met with up there. We had a great offline conversation. We sat around eating tacos and all kind of other stuff, artisan stuff that you could think of up there in New Mexico, and music, the whole bit. Hey, everybody's just doing their thing up there and acting like nothing's, like Rome's not burning. And he had far right conservative legislation he was trying to push in his Democrat Senate as a Democrat senator. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, you've got the far left is coming after you. And that's exactly right. We have, like in Texas here, we had our moderate Democrats. We, Senator Lucio, great man. He was obviously a South Texas Democrat, but he was very pro-life, and he was a very big moderate Democrat that could be seen as a Republican. Problem is, Republican Party never did anything down there in the Valley. As a matter of fact, they've gone down there time and time again over the past 5 years, and they've done nothing to advance it. I think Allen West was the only one who actually put any physical money into the place that the people wanted to use. Let me qualify that. You can come in from D.C. down to South Texas all day long, and you can say, we're going to keep Texas red, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But when you have a bunch of white people that show up with a mariachi band and they attract all the white people, that is the dumbest optics I've ever seen. And then they put up some of the dumbest candidates down there. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. They figured out it's a grift. It's all about the money that comes in. They have some good candidates. I know Janie Lopez was brought in, but we lost so many other spots. And I'm hoping to see a new Senate run for some of the ones that we barely missed out on. When we lost Senator Lucio's seat, we lost a Republican voice with that Democrat seat. He was pro-life. He called out his colleagues, respectfully called out his colleagues when Wendy Davis was running and she went to testify, abortion Barbie. And Senator Lucio, he called her out very respectfully in front of everybody and said, we don't agree. And he schooled her, and she sat there and took it. You want to know why she sat there and took it? Because it was one of her own. One of her own came in and said, hey, We need to make sure that that we fight for the unborn. And there's people that don't agree with that. But the question is, if we're overpopulated, then when's it going to be your turn? If you're saying, well, we're overpopulated, I tell people, well, take one for the team. Let Darwin take over. Bottom line, we have these far-reaching issues that everybody likes to make 90% of the problem about 10% of the issues. And if we could move those 10% of the issues off the table, then we'd be able to solve 90% of our problems. That ain't happening. Not right now, because that's not what the consultants want. That's not what the establishment wants. They want both parties on the ground floor fighting each other, little ants just doing their thing. I touched a little bit earlier on the Maui situation and what was happening over there. Yeah, that's a travesty. That right there should tell you, because that's a socialist form of government over there. Those folks, they rely heavily on what we've got to provide. I remember going that direction whenever I was at the Schofield Barracks. U.S. Army, of course, the 25th IB is over there. I did some training for those guys. We also did some recruiting. We tried to find some folks to come into the upper military echelon of the U.S. Army. So we were looking for some special forces adventures. That's always a place to go to. I haven't seen that place since the mid 2000s. But I do know my dad had friends back there in the 80s. They were all on film. They were 70s and 80s. They had some petrochemical fires that they were working with. A lot of people don't know this, but Hawaii and Mexico used to have a very good relationship in the 17 and 1800s. Matter of fact, the 1700s, the Hawaiians brought over several Mexicans because of their cowboys, the vaqueros, and they learned how to do the farm and ranching and how to deal with the cattle, how to ride the horse. That was one of the things that King Kamehameha worked with the Mexicans on. So that was a lot of folks don't know that the tidbit of useless information. They have no clue about the role that Mexico played in the movement of Hawaii. Unfortunately, they're both, socialist systems, and in Mexico, while they like to call it a democracy, Mexico is about as socialist and is about as communist as you're going to get next to California. So it's as a matter of fact, the Mexicans were aligning with the communists back in the 1920s, 1930s, 1920s, and it wasn't until the movement of the Reich and the Nazis and all that stuff that they started to separate from things. So, and you'll find, there's a lot of Germans made their way to Mexico as quickly as they could. So take that for what it's worth. But no, Hawaii has just, they've just been hit. The last largest natural disaster I think they had was going to be in the 1960s with a tsunami that hit. Now, here we are. They are, they've burned down, burned down the town. It's been interesting to see, though, that a lot of the areas that burned was the land that Oprah and her cronies were wanting to purchase. They've purchased several thousand acres or 1,000+ acres, and people didn't want to sell. And then all of a sudden the fire started, and you're looking at a mass hysteria of folks that did die. Like I said, there's over 1,300 people as of about an hour ago. The governor put out over 1,300 people are missing, down from the initial 2,200. So they've been able to bring it down to just over 1,000, but we still know that there's at least around 100 that have died just because they've counted the bodies. And this was a flash fire, much like the 2018 fire they had in Paradise, California, where same thing happened. Flash fire, a lot of folks, a lot of death, a lot of destruction. The thing we need to look at here is, what are we doing with our resources? While I was cruising through New Mexico, the one thing I noticed was there was a lot of areas that had been burned. And I totally forgot about the wildland urban interface that nobody wants to talk about. And that was I met a couple hotshot crews. I got some pictures with those guys. We had some fun in discussion. And I'm over 50 years old now, and that was the stuff I wanted to do in my teens and my 20s. So these guys are coming out now. They're the ones. They're a little rougher. Back then they had ponytails. Now ponytails, goatees. They used to be halfway military related. The smoke jumpers, the ones that jumped out, as well as the ones that were the ones that jumped out, as well as the ones who were the hotshot crews that were the cleanup team. They were the ones in there doing the actual grunt work. And we're talking, back whenever I was involved, it was you were getting paid minimum wage, and it is what it is. Nowadays, I think it pays a little bit better, but it's a communal living. These guys are like a tribe. And I was sitting at the gorge of the Rio Grande River, which was almost in Colorado where I was at. So think of that. What hits the Gulf of Mexico after flowing 1,200 miles alongside Texas, I was the other side of New Mexico. And it's not the Mississippi, but she's darn near close. So, and she is our boundary, but up there, again, hardly any water there. It was beautiful and green, and it was in the 60s. The temperature during the day was in the 60s. They are just now starting to get their monsoon season. So we did experience several heavy rainfalls. With those heavy rainfalls, that's what they had. Those heavy rainfalls did their thing. So anyway, the looking around Texas, we've got Democrats in other states that are doing some phenomenal things, and we can't get Texans to do their election integrity bit. Yeah. Oh, Alexandra, I definitely have been exhausted. I got in at 3:00 this morning from about a 17, 18-hour drive. So I have done my part for the Southern American states. I'll put it to you that way. But folks are not talking about the Endeavor situation. Alexandra, I understand that down in her county, down in her area, Endeavor has opened up a new facility for illegal aliens, old nursing home close to the schools. They're finding that we're having to integrate the illegals into our schools. Whenever we start doing this, what we're physically doing is we're physically taking the people and from other countries, putting them with our kids. And it's not, we need to separate everybody because we're racist. But our kids are losing their ability to learn because we have to stop and wait for somebody else that came here 4 years before they should have come, or whenever they're not prepared. And then not to mention the fact that you got 20-year-olds trying to pass themselves off as 15 and 16-year-olds trying to get into high school. So we've physically seen where we've got we've had 30 to 40-year-old men. Oh, I'm 13. I'm 14. And Border Patrol, the agents, they put that down. Yeah, they take them at their word. Why? Because they threw their ID away when they were in Mexico. They get to say who they were, not vetting anybody. It's kind of like a Harris County election. So anyway, Endeavors has been taking federal money. If you look at the board behind Endeavors, we have a lot of former military generals that are a part of that. The Endeavors program that's in Del Rio, that's in Eagle Pass. They have an office in Uvalde. There's a lot of former U.S. military generals that have been doing their things. Alexandra's talking about the brand new non-functioning metal detectors that are her campuses. So now they're putting metal detectors at schools that aren't working. We had the mass hysteria of the illegals that happened. Was it back in April? We had 2 weeks in April to May, where it was nothing but illegal aliens that were going around Texas with the mass killings, the shooting up in Allen, Texas. That was an American, but conditioned cartel member, and that was kicked out of the military, oddly enough. So kicked out of the military because he was crazy enough, and yet he had the same situation as what we had with the Air Force kid that came down and shot up the Sutherland Springs Baptist Church. So the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs. Then we have who was the other one? Then we had the Hispanic that drove over all the people down in Brownsville and killed all those folks. So the news media didn't want to report on it. Matter of fact, they were calling it white supremacy by brown people. The news is losing its mind trying to figure out where they're going to go with things. So Endeavors, that's something that folks really need to look at. They look at the Endeavors program, the contract that these people are making. So you've got Catholic Charities, you've got Endeavors, and the Endeavors program, I mean, look at their board. Their board is all former military. Well, not all, but mostly former military. And I mean, you just can't wonder what would make a patriot, do that. So, communities, they're splitting up because people are like, we don't want our kids going to school with these kids who have been, raped, beaten, sodomized, sold, forced to kill other people, forced to do these things to other people. And then you're putting them into the school with your children. I've got kids of my own. Last thing I want them to see is I've got one fixing to get out. I'm excited, but I got two more, and they're good kids. They've got good friends. They will do the right thing and take care of people. But whenever you start adding the element in, so we can school these guys, all they're doing is for the ones that are the bad ones. They're enabling a recruiting ability. And that's why, when we see people discussing the drag queen story hours and all that kind of stuff and all the agendas that they're putting into the school districts, that's why it's really important to make sure that we're watching what the school districts are doing. Because while the elected officials over the school boards are too scared and they want to conform and they want to be friendly, it's not going to be friendly for your children. And it's different whenever you have kids. We have all these people that go out there and argue and step up, and we should let kids be kids. Nah, let parents figure out what they want for the children, because we're the ones who are responsible. We're the ones who are in charge. Michael McCall, Michael McCall. There's a guy. And you know what? His wife's got a lot of money, so he's able to spend it. He's up there in Congress, and he's doing for you what he's doing for you. So he keeps his donors happy, and that's all that matters for him. And that's all that matters for his situation. So the bottom line is America's in trouble, and we have groups and organizations much like. Endeavors, Catholic Charities, and they are being given our monies, our taxpayer dollars. They're being given, and we're paying for it. We're paying for it, whether you like it or not. And that's their whole entire and ultimate goal, is to make sure that we're the ones stuck with the bill. So anyway, we're getting close to the top of our hour. Mine isn't friendly. My school board trustee told me to listen to him just this morning. Alexandra, I mean, he was elected. And, whenever you have these elected officials, first thing they do is forget that they were elected by your popular vote or without your popular vote. So you're a very controversial individual, Alexandra, though. I mean, you got to admit, you fight for the right, and they just want to take it. So good for you, because we need more folks just like you. Known you for years, and yeah, we need more folks just like you that are going to get into the grind and try to move the popular vote and try to move the popular thought process over to what we need. So if you're not pissing people off, well, then you're part of the problem. So it's time to get up, to shake it up, get mad, and make other people wake up. That's what we've got to do. I'm going to go ahead and move us to another one of Sandra's commercials here. I think she had me a couple laid out. We haven't had a Santos moment, but here is the Summer Women commercial. Hey y'all, and we are back. It is 11 a.m. and I have not heard from our guest, nor have I heard from Sandra. We talked a little bit on her drive down here, but we haven't seen anything since. So, um, Jacqueline Toboroff, she wrote a book. Book is called Supermoms Activated, in case you can't see that. Supermoms Activated. It's got our very own Sandra Witten on there. It talks about Kaylee Fontanella, Sandra, Kimberly Fletcher, Sarah Gonzalez. Okay, some folks I do know. Julie Gunlock, Olivia Barnard. Anyway, it discusses their don't underestimate moms since the start of COVID-19, CRT, and the liberal takeover of the school system. Moms across America are banding together and advocating for their kids' well-being, even if it means relocating, flipping school boards, running for political office, or getting canceled. So anyway, we're having an exciting time. Trying to see this. I have a young lady. In case you can't see, her name is right. You got to be kidding me. Is that really you?
I don't know. Did you put me up on the screen?
Yeah, you're on the screen, dork.
Hey, y'all.
America can see you. Oh, did you not put your makeup on yet? I apologize for that.
It ain't happening. This is as good as it gets, America. I'm so sorry. I got stuck in an hour's worth of extra traffic on 83.
Well, the story of your life is waiting on traffic.
Yeah, so it is. Oddly enough. All right, hold on. I'm sending the link to our guests. They're going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. It's going to be Jacqueline and it's going to be Olivia Barnard. She's in the last chapter of the book, and she's actually here in Texas as well.
Well, I recognize the name, and I'm trying to figure out where we met up with her or what she was, because that's one of the names I read off was Olivia Barnard. Bernard. So.
He's about to fall asleep. Wait, what did I miss this last hour, y'all? So I was super excited. I finally got in and was met immediately with screams and hugs and kisses, and so it was good. So that's why I was a little bit like. Actually, I didn't even get home until 15 minutes after the show even started.
Were the kids so the kids are happy that now they can get some food?
I'm pretty close. Pretty close. It was pretty funny. We've had quite a bit of belly laughs the last 45 minutes or so. So Charlotte now knows that gators. What do gators love to eat, Charlotte? Marshmallows.
Marshmallows.
Okay. Okay. But my office was incapacitated because they made that their fortress of toddler. I'm sorry, they're not toddlers anymore. Of 6-year-olders and 4-year-olders. So I was like, oh. So I said, you know what? I'll come in here in the kitchen and we'll just do it that way. It'll work out. So he's fine. He's tired. He is. You were probably going to recap anyway, but you were hanging out with Anthony and the guys from Taka Systems. Is that correct?
Yeah, we we'll say hanging out. The guy from Traka Systems. The guys from Traka Systems, they brought their camera up. Oh, who? What? Yeah, and she's out.
No, she realized that she forgot to get her mask, and so she wants everyone to see her new mask that she got.
Her what?
Arthur's introducing you to her new. You'll see.
You said it's a
Mask
mask?
the right way. Yeah, but it's the right way.
It's a what?
Hold on. Because I haven't seen him since we were in with our Parliament friends.
Okay. The debauchery of New Orleans, yes.
The debauchery of New Orleans has met the
That's-
debauchery of a 4-year-old.
There you go. There you go.
I'm
Well,
just making triple sound effects.
if you can't drag it out of them, I guess you can let them Mardi Gras up with it, huh?
Yes, that they can. So they've been having fun, and we've been telling some fun stories, huh? She's showing off the feathers. She's showing off the feathers.
Uh-huh.
She goes, can I wear this for Halloween? I said, we'll figure it out. But she's trying to figure out what her masquerade name is. Oh, and she's, watch out. Watch out. All righty. Walter, for the Jacqueline, we just do things like family around here on Texas Fully Loaded. This is the author of the book, Jacqueline. How are you? Okay,
I love this. This is like
you never know what you're going to. Texas Fully Loaded is truly like a box of chocolates, and you never know what you're going to get. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and looks like my home.
Yeah. Hey, girl. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Olivia. Welcome to the show. Walter has been amazingly holding down. Second, I got stuck in traffic as I texted you guys, and so I was like an hour late getting here to Laredo. So I had to have 5 seconds with the kids because I haven't seen them in a week, and so we had lots of fun. So welcome to Texas Fully Loaded, you super moms.
You too. Back at you.
It does kind of feel like a Wednesday, doesn't it, Miss Patty? So I want you guys, let's start, if you guys don't mind. Jacqueline, I want you to kind of dig right into why you decided to write this book and kind of the overview a little bit, and then we can go from there. How does that sound?
That sounds good. So Super Moms Activated is a timestamp of 2 years. It's between 2020 to 2022. 2020 was the pandemic, as well as BLM, which ushered in CRT, and that changed everything. And then going up to 2022 were the primaries, where we saw this tectonic shift of these super moms who perhaps were never politically activated prior to 2020, all of a sudden waking up. And it was due to myriads of issues, whether it was the failure to the educational system, whether it was crime, whether it was illegals and danger and homeless encampments and drugs. So all of these things created a perfect storm.
Now, where did you get this amazing idea, though, to include moms? I mean, there's so many people that did jump in, but what was it? I mean, aside from, the obvious, we're all moms here, except for Walter. He plays one on Wednesdays, but that's a different story.
I think
what was your motivation?
I think the two real points here are that I knew that the Biden administration, the teachers union, were going to look to erase, revise what happened. They had already labeled these mothers domestic terrorists, and they had already started reworking their narrative. And, these mothers have been silenced long enough. And I think the other thing that was really important was the 12 that were featured in this book. They were all, I'd say, they were a range of socioeconomic backgrounds, religious, racial backgrounds, as well as political party backgrounds. And it was north, south, east, west. At least 50% of the moms in this book are Democrats, but they're people that can no longer take these failed Democrat policies anymore.
That's kind of a really cool key twist there, is that it's not just Republicans, because I think that was the thing. And something that Walter and I kind of got to experience this weekend was we sat with a Democrat senator all weekend long and talked about election integrity and about how both sides are getting screwed by this. And this is something that we've been preaching since 2020, is that you've got to sit down and talk to people. Don't just assume because they have an R or a D behind their name that we don't share values somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one bridge that unites moms is education. That's the one thing. It goes beyond race, religion, monetary income, everything. It's and political party background for sure.
So sorry.
Now, as you start your coughing fit, Olivia, it's your turn to talk.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you and how you got dragged into this.
You know, it was the worldwide wake up of the moms in 2020. I'm in Texas, so being in Texas, you feel a certain sense of insulation and protection, but the realities felt like whack-a-mole. I mean, it was just one thing after another, and we're watching this play out. Excuse me, Texas allergies on national media, and for me, it is what was happening locally, how we were responding to what was happening nationally, and I just couldn't believe it. I really say for me, it was the masks, but it was what the masks were symbolic of. Somebody else making medical decisions for my son, somebody infringing upon the rights of my family. And I remember we were actually set to go to New York for spring break of 2020. And I am a stubborn woman. I was going to go no matter what. Things were kind of starting to shut down. And then we didn't have the choice to go anymore. And that was just, I mean, I felt like I was watching something third world, because you look outside and the sun is shining and people are healthy, right? Those of us who were still getting sunshine and working out and exercising, and just watching this absolute collapse of society. And it felt so orchestrated, and I just didn't want to be part of it. I didn't buy into any of it.
Well, when all of that stuff happened, it was, of course, you're here in Texas, so you'll remember, it was just as we just finished our primary runs in March of 2020. I had to fly back to Washington, D.C. to Maryland for a family funeral. And it was myself, my middle sister, and our three little ones at the time. So we had three toddlers, and we're flying home to Maryland, to Washington, D.C. We're walking through the mall area, and we're going, what in the world? Like, I've never in my entire life seen it empty. And Walter and several are texting me going, there's like a pandemic that's fixing to happen. Like, I can't believe that you're out there like this. Like, everything's shutting down. And then when we flew back, never in my life have I seen the Dulles airport completely empty. Like, I mean, we could all just kind of starfish, if you will, in the chairs in the airport. And even on the plane, because people were not getting on planes and they weren't taking flights. They weren't going out in public. I get back here to Texas, and thankfully, it hadn't quite gone into full force yet. So I get back to Texas, I go to Sam's Club, I do my regular shopping because nothing had formally been shut down yet. And then within 3 days of me going and doing, the regular Sam's Club run and all that kind of stuff, people can't find toilet paper, people can't find this, and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, what the crap? And then our spring break in Texas started, and then they shut everything completely down in Texas after that. It was insane. And the number of kids that were affected by this, and Olivia, you'll appreciate this, here in Webb County in South Texas, they went just insane. They were forcing kids to wear masks. When school did come back the following year, they were trying to force kids to get the vaccine so that they could, we're not on YouTube right now, so they're not going to kick me off again. They were forcing the kids to get their vaccines. So they were on the football field saying, if you don't take this, you can't. And so before they were even getting parental consent, these kids were allowed to get this vaccine so that they could continue to do sports as they knew it. And then the parents found out about it afterwards. And the number of parents and even teachers and counselors that were reaching out going, something's not right here, Ms. Whitman. We need somebody to advocate for us.
I think you bring up a really good point. I think that was the other reason why the 12 moms were so important, because we saw that politicians on really both sides of the aisle had failed us, and the people that were stepping into the breach were the moms.
Mm-hmm. It was, the moms were stepping up. Our first day of
Walt
was the Friday before spring break. And I will never forget, I'm 46 years old. I will never forget thinking school shutting down. Like, it was the most inconceivable concept to me. And to imagine that it would be a year before we would go back, it was just inconceivable. And I knew I've done a lot of work with foster care, foster families in my life. So I've been around underperforming school districts, socioeconomic conditions. I knew what this would do to our kids emotionally, mental health, that I knew that we would lose children in this foster care, that we would lose the tracking of children, that child abuse would go up. And now I think we're seeing it. We're seeing it play out with test scores. We're seeing it play out with kids' emotional, mental health. We really, we did such a disservice to our children.
I just want to say one thing, because Olivia brings up a really good point. We are nowhere close to being done with this. As they try to move on and pivot to the next thing, this is a lost generation. We are not recouping. We are not recouping this at all. This educational loss, we are not recouping. I mean, 2/3 of our nation's children are not 4th grade level proficient in reading and math. America's largest teachers union is mandating genderqueer this summer, and that's as New York public schools are 76% of our 8th graders are not 8th grade level proficient in math. I mean, we are never recouping this. So they can try to erase between 2020 and 2022 and say, move on, now we're in 2028. But no, sorry, this is not fixable. Like, you cannot unfix what they did here.
And we haven't done anything. Think about the kids that were seniors that had academic scholarships or had athletic scholarships. They don't get those opportunities back. I don't know if that data exists, but the families that I know that had students that were coming out of high school that were going into college on those types of programs chose ultimately not even to go because the packages were gone. They couldn't compete anymore. It's devastating.
Well, and actually, this is specifically what they did on purpose. And we've got a military mindset. They hit us at the lowest level that they could, our base foundation, the family core, the children, specifically the children. Parents had to look at their kids and lie to their kids. And you know what? Kids have now figured out that has actually happened. Oh, my parents said this was going to be okay. And whenever they came back out of this, what did we get? The genderqueer, the transvestite stuff, the drag queen story hours, the fact that, you need to take the jab, even though for some strange reason, kids are now starting to fall dead. We lost the biggest population of our nursing home population in New York. No one's been held accountable for any of that. And you're not seeing people, they created laws in there, or they passed laws that said, hey, we can't be sued for this. Well, why aren't people even trying? If you can't sue in the New York Supreme Court, then you should be able to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and you should be able to have your case expedited. The fact that we have all these people that have invaded the country by the millions, and what have we done? We've put those folks in class with ours, and those folks have been indoctrinated as they've come over. We've, you guys were talking about the, and I brought up the drag queen story hour, but they literally have transvestite services or transgender services for children, and it's in Spanish. And this was what was given to these kids while they were the illegal immigrants that were coming in while they were staying in our camps. Olivia, you specifically specified and talked about the foster care system. What has happened to DFPS, Department of Family Protective Services, in the foster care system in Texas? We've lost 85 to 130,000 illegal aliens. No one's talking about that.
Yes, that gets me on all of this, but to the border, when, back in 17, 18, when we were saying, kids in cages, family separation happens to protect children, to make sure that the children that are coming across the border with adults are with a legal guardian or a parent. And it blows my mind that the media won't cover that now. Family separation saved hundreds of thousands of children that were being brought across the border illegally for trafficking, for sex trafficking, for human trafficking. It's mind-blowing, but it's interesting how it really is all connected when you say they kind of hit us there. I believe it's all part of some type of much, much bigger agenda.
Well, and it's kind of funny that when you were saying that, I specifically was when we were talking about the mask, one of the biggest things that we saw in the trafficking versus the school system situation, especially down here, is that all of a sudden, the year that we come back to school from COVID, everyone's required to wear a mask. No one is required to wear a uniform just that one year. And I was getting phone calls going, hey, so this, please never use my name, but I just registered 20 kids and none of them have a legal guardian in the United States, and every single one of them is in this country illegally. They told me their story about how they came across the river with a coyote. And it was all done at the exact same time that our school district, who has never not allowed school uniforms, even for especially for elementary school. Elementary school is still not allowed to not have a uniform. They went right back to uniforms again. They were forcing these kids to wear masks. My Alex was a sophomore that year, Walter, sophomore, junior, one of the two. Anyway, we tried to go and take him onto campus after the governor and the attorney general made their big statement about, they can't be forced to wear masks at school. And they refused. I had it all on my Facebook Lives and everything. They refused to let my kids into school so that they could, do what was necessary. And so when I had the governor's order with me, and they said, that doesn't apply here. And I said, it absolutely applies here. This is still the United States of America. More importantly, this is Texas, and this is where it applies even more. And so you will never convince me that the masks and the COVID and the extremism, the shutting everybody in their homes, here in South Texas specifically, from that, we had two young women. One of them was 18 years old. She was pulled out of her home with the Laredo SWAT. They had the big SWAT trucks. They had the battering ram things and everything, because she had made appointments to do eyelashes in her home during COVID.
Wow.
And she had to get a pardon from the governor.
And this is in Texas. This is in Texas. I was introduced to Jacqueline during all of this. And this is what I love about the book and the story is that we all ultimately were connected on the internet, on social media. And we created this worldwide web of moms everywhere and just started sharing stories. And so much of it came just from disbelief and this commonality that we had. But Sandra, we're talking about things that happened in Texas and how we couldn't believe it got that bad. To hear her stories of what was happening in New York, it's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, ladies, have you read the latest headline today is the CDC is actively, they are really going to make these COVID vaccines. It's not a vaccine, but this is what we have to call it. These vaccines, like the flu shot, babies, children are going to be taking. And this is not over. That's the whole point of this book. This is not over. And the thing that I really like is the 12 of you not only discuss what activated you, and that's minor. I think the important thing here is you forecast these terrible things that are really coming down the pike, and each one of you help provide the blueprint to attack woke ideology from a different angle. And I think right now, whether you're a mom in Texas or New York City, a blue state, a red state, wherever you are, there are incremental things that you can do to get involved, whether you're type A or you prefer to work behind the scenes. There really is, even like a retweet of something that might just, help spread the information, volunteering. Olivia, I love your story, how you ran for school board. You and I were joking about it, like how I got involved in politics is I showed up at a rally and I used to make fun of those people. Like, don't they have a life? It was time to make some little scrappy cardboard sign.
I know, right?
Yes. And your story about how when you were running for school board, who are these people, these school boardians? What are they? What do they do? They do everything, they do everything. And I think really how government kept us in the dark is we were clueless as to the importance of the school boards.
That goes back to education, though. We are not teaching, and I am blessed to be in Texas where we have some great legislators, and I am very blessed to be serving the district that I do. I stand behind my district. We're doing really great things. But I believe that the failure of our education system, the biggest gap, in my opinion, interestingly enough, comes back to civics. Do you know how many young adults right now don't understand how our government works? It it is not coincidence or accident that they're getting out of these extremely liberal universities and they're going out into the world, and we don't understand the basic function of our government. For me, that's the biggest lesson, because we trusted our government, we trusted our schools, we trust everything, and now there's this big wake up and we're getting activated. I want to see people get involved, get engaged. It can be small. I know that Jacqueline and I agree, leaving public schools, in my opinion, is not the answer, because all of the problems that we currently see in public education will only become bigger if we leave. We need to get involved, serve, volunteerism, substitute teaching, anything, but we need to get involved in our students' education again, get involved in our communities again, because us not being there is how this happened.
Well, I think that's actually a really interesting point, because there are some moms in this book that think, we need to burn this down, the entire educational complex. But the truth of the matter is, we're still providing the tax money for it. So even if we pull out our children and we homeschool, and homeschooling numbers have spiked, what do you think government's going to do? The curriculum for homeschooling is state by state. It goes state by state. You can't just make up your curriculum. Once they see these numbers go up, they're going to stick their mitts in the homeschooling, just like they've done with the public.
They're already trying, even here in Texas.
Where your tax dollars go, government infringement
There you
goes.
go. There you go. So it's crucial that we fight back in public school, which is where this battle has to be. Because if you're in a private school, which is actually ground zero for all terrible woke ideas, they will say, well, you have no recourse. You can pull your child out. Where the recourse is public school.
One of the things that we're seeing a lot of is when we were trying, and I'll be honest, I don't know what the true status of the school choice bill ended up completely being, but I sat in Senator Creighton's office and I said, the meat and potatoes of this bill is the most toxic thing I've ever read. I said, look, the funding is not the issue. That's not why people are pulling their kids out of schools. The problem that we're having in the state of Texas specifically is the TEA. I said, we've got to sink our claws into them, because they're the ones that are providing this Texas information. I said, do you realize that most of the schools that have an A+ rating on them only have that rating because somebody knew how to file paperwork? I said, you could walk into any one of my kids' schools right now and you would not see the results of what an A+ school should actually look like. We're having a war in the other room. So when you really stop and take a look at these bills, and this is why it's important, you can't just be involved. You have to know what's being fought for also, and you have to know why it's being done the way that it's being done. Most of the parents that were fighting for school choice under the school choice bill, as of when it went to the Senate floor, it was not anything that not one of us parents would have actually been able to take advantage of or be involved in. No. And what we're seeing in other states like South Carolina, for example, is that even though your child is homeschooled, they still fall under all of the guidelines of what has to. So it's not true homeschooling. At least here in Texas, we have true homeschooling still. You can homeschool your child however you want to. So I do believe that the parents should choose their kids' education, but at the same breath, we have to make sure that the state is not infringing. And when the state is infringing, because the federal government is breathing down, 8% of our school money comes from the federal government. It was only originally supposed to be used for special needs programs, but now they get to rule with the golden scepter because we have allowed the TEA, we've allowed all these teacher unions to take control instead of allowing it to be on the ISD level where it was supposed to be.
It's funny when you say school choice, because I have noticed, and this is a nonpartisan issue. We have legislators and we have senators using that phrase. We're either for school choice or we're against school choice. And what you said is exactly right. It comes down to the bill, because at the end of the day, there's not a state in this country that doesn't have school choice. As a parent, I can choose if I go to public, private, charter, homeschool. Every state's going to have different regulations and whatnot. This is not about the choice of where you send your child. I am 100% for school choice. This movement really is about tax dollars and what comes with those tax dollars.
Right. No, it absolutely is. I kind of threw them a curveball when I was sitting in his office. I was speaking to the young man that actually authored the bill, and he said, "Well, you don't understand. We have to make sure that we can provide an education for everyone in the state of Texas. It's in our Constitution." I said, "No, I understand that entirely." I said, "So with you having limitations on how this bill works, let's just play devil's advocate for 1 second because I love to stir the pot. Let's say that every single parent in the state of Texas decides that, you know what? Constitutionally, they have to provide an education for my child. I'm going to put every single one of them back in public school. How are you going to pay for it then?" And he just stared at me and he goes, "Well, I mean, we'll figure that out." And I said, "Well, no, if you can figure it out then you should be able to figure it out now." I said, "But with all the strings attached that you have in this bill, you're not providing an education for every child in the state of Texas." I said, "You're picking and choosing." And I said, "The worst part is that you're still bowing to the problems that we're having." Exactly. We can't just throw money at the problems and hope they go away. We have to be fighting. We have to be fighting the fights. You know, I've gone all over the state fighting for other school boards, and other schools or specific situations I've been asked to come and speak on. Our local principal at the elementary school that my kids go to, she is not allowing any parents to come inside of the building, even if they are a registered volunteer.
For what?
For anything. I was there during this last school year. I went to go and take medical paperwork up for one of my students, or for my son, and they would not let me in that building. And I said, "I'm not handing this paperwork to anybody except for the school nurse. I will not hand it to a teacher. I'm not going to hand it to the principal. I'm not going to hand it to a security guard. I will not put this in anybody else's hand." And they said, "Well, what makes you think that you deserve it? Or why do you think you need to come inside of this building?" And I said, "Number one, you don't have the authority to keep me from my child.
Wow.
I pay your salary, not the other way around."
Is that a policy? Is that a policy? Parents aren't allowed in the building?
Only at that one school. And my understanding is that this principal is being protected by the superintendent because they were like freshman principals together. So we're going to be cracking into that a lot more this year, because at first I thought it was just maybe these are just issues that I'm having, and because I'm so in and out, maybe it's just me. Every time I was at the pool this summer in our neighborhood, I heard horror story after horror story after horror story from where parents were not being. One of them was, she said, "I was asked to come up and work in the library." And she goes, "And I was going to go through some of the books and see if we have any of those ugly books in our classroom or in our school." She said, "But when I went up there, I was treated awfully. I finally was able to get into the office after 20 minutes, and then I waited another 20 minutes, and everybody was giving me dirty looks. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm not going to stay then." And she said it wasn't until the librarian came up and was like, "Hey, we've been looking for you. I thought you were supposed to be here an hour ago." And then she told her what happened. Like, for some reason, some of these principals and administrations are getting this God complex, Charlotte. Please quit dropping that. Getting this God complex that they just get to rule with an iron fist. And first she blamed COVID, then she blamed Uvalde, and now I'm excited to see what this year's round of why she's not letting parents in the school this year. And whenever I try to talk to her in person, it's everything's great. No, just let me know if we need anything. So we're gonna have some fun battles here at this elementary school, because the other elementary schools in the same district are not doing that.
I'm curious how district, we just went through, and we have new safety policies. I mean, we want to make sure that we know who every single adult in the building is. And that becomes a real challenge when educators are there to teach, the administrators are there. We're very fortunate that we work with our sheriff's department on safety. But anyway, I'm curious, in New York, what does safety look like there? Because the schools are different. Here in Texas, schools are on big campuses and it's kind of wide open spaces. What does it look like in New York?
Safety looks terrible in New York. Firstly, because we have, one party Democrat rule, which is very radical right now. We also have an issue. I did Grant Stinchfeld the other night, and he kind of thought that I was crazy because I said, in New York City and in Manhattan, some of our schools are over 50% illegal children. And he said, "Lucky you, like here in Texas, some of our schools are over 80%.
I saw that.
And here's the issue with that. The issue is, again, here in New York, our public schools, our 8th grade students are not 8th grade level proficient. So let's just isolate that for a second before we even get to safety. safety does play a part of this, but when you have these new illegal kids coming, we are not all the same. Different cultures bring in different sorts of criminality. This is just a fact. You can go to any statistic and find it. Are these boys who are coming in who probably don't speak English? If so, there's no way they can be grade level proficient in pretty much any of the traditional core curriculum subject matter, but where are they getting placed? Are they getting placed if they're 15 in, let's say 9th or 10th grade, or are they going to a grade that corresponds with maybe their English level, maybe 3rd grade? How does this look for girls and for female teachers? So I've heard horror stories from some of my friends, moms in public school. One of their daughters was assaulted. She found out that the principal was concealing it, and that one of the 4 boys, who happens to be an illegal, already has a restraining order from another girl in the same class that he has already assaulted. She said the school felt terrible, but couldn't do anything. They don't want to do anything. They definitely do not want to expose this for what it is. It's a horror show. It is definitely bringing up scholastic issues, safety issues. New York City is already struggling. We have very pro-criminal politicians and policies. So
I just saw a report that you guys are expected to lose as many restaurants as you did post-COVID, because so many hotels, taxpayers in New York are paying for these hotels to be bought out, to be housing for immigrants. And then the restaurants there that relied on the hotels are having to close.
It makes more sense financially to make a deal with the government to home illegals, which are all criminals by definition. And another reason why the left keeps on confusing us with these terms like asylum seekers and migrants. They're illegals and they're all criminals by definition. And the problem, by the way, with that is when you don't understand the ethos of the country you are coming to, why would you, if you ignore the most basic rule, why would you want to follow any other rule? And it turns out they're really not. People, minorities that work in these hotels that are here legally are complaining of abuse, of drugs, of assault, of, all sorts of things. Women are complaining. 2 women were just assaulted in a asylum, in some sort of shelter situation by illegals. So this is definitely coming to the fore. It's going to be very problematic. The administration, the Adams administration, is not at all transparent. He keeps lying about the numbers. He can't be honest about the numbers because there's no end in sight to the flood of illegals that are coming. And with that inability to pinpoint a number, there's no number you can give on the statistics of violence. It just keeps on coming. And, again, it goes back to when you let in criminals, they will criminalize.
Your prelude to the book of walking through what one morning for you and your kids looks like, oh gosh.
No, y'all have got to get this book. Seriously.
I'm holding it up, guys. Get this book on Amazon. And the other reason why to get this book, and I'll leave you with this horror story. Again, just America's largest teachers union, which has 1.7 million members, has mandated this summer the book Gender Queer. So the Biden administration, as well as the teachers union that work in tandem, have crippled the free market and they have made it a fixed market. They have made millionaires and bestsellers out of these radicals like Ibram Kendi and D'Angelo, who has white fragility. I mean, we should not be creating and celebrating class wars, race wars, anything Marxist related. We should not be celebrating these people and these ideas. These are really dangerous. So for, the free market, let's celebrate these 12 women that have had, along with every other mother, been silenced and erased and shut down and treated, quite frankly, like dirt.
No, you're absolutely right. I wanted, but before we end, ladies, we were talking about the schools and some of the horror that has happened in terms of sexual abuse. Have either of you heard about Plainview, Texas?
No, I'm scared.
Olivia, you're here in Texas. Plainview,
Yes.
Texas.
Yeah, but remind me, which case was that?
So this happened.
There's a lot of cases right now.
This happened at the end of the school year. A little 6-year-old girl was forced to give a BLOW to a 6-year-old boy in the classroom.
I heard about this.
Yeah.
It was recorded, and the grandparents did not find out about it until after the young girl had been seen by somebody who was bigger than Walter in terms of height, sex, the whole entire thing. And the whole thing kept going, and essentially they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. It was consensual. That's what the school board came. It was consensual. That's what the school board came back and told this family.
That can go into a million different directions, right? Like what's happening at that child's home that this would even be a thought. What's happening in the classroom that a teacher didn't notice that 2 kids were isolated or whatnot. But this goes back to, I mean, even when you think about economics and tax dollars, our classroom sizes,
If only they had been isolated. They were at you know how they'll have the big round tables?
I heard they were under a table. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The little girl was, and she had been hitting the boy with her notebook to make him stop. There was nothing consensual about this at all. And the teacher's excuse was, I had my headphones in, and I was helping another student. We were doing the reading stuff, so they're allowed to have headphones in or whatever. But then the school board came back and said, just so you know, no, we saw a video from the camera in the hallway outside of the classroom, and she didn't have headphones.
She didn't have what?
She didn't have headphones on. I said, I want to know what kind of camera system they have that in the hallway the camera could see that she wasn't wearing headphones, because all of the cameras from school shootings are still quite blurry. Yeah. The fact that this camera could pick up AirPods, not even headphones, AirPods in a teacher's ear is just absolutely phenomenal.
I don't
got the best technology in the state in Plainview, Texas, apparently.
There's no excuse for it. I don't believe that any district should ever be held responsible for the actions of an individual, right? But when those children are in our classrooms, that teacher has a responsibility, and ultimately that district is responsible. I want to look more into that. I had heard about it, but some of those details I wasn't aware of. But it's just hard to understand how in the classroom that wasn't seen.
I think one other thing, I think to Olivia's earlier point, teachers are responsible to a certain extent. I think we really need to start holding accountable parents. Parents have really dropped the ball here, and teen violence is on the rise.
Yes.
This also can go in many directions. It's because we have pro-criminal politicians that encourage it, incentivize it. Parents also we just had a riot in Union Square Park last week, and it was primarily teenagers. Where in fresh hell were those parents of those teenagers, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, going to this riot, beating up elderly men, beating up women, beating up police officers? Who conducts themselves like that? It's someone that has been brought up in a broken home without any moral fiber.
This is the best place, I think, to end this conversation. I tell my son all the time, we're going to win this culture war between the dinner table and church. And I understand not everyone goes to church, and we all have different faiths, and that's beautiful. But it's about raising our children with respect, to respect life, to have, this goes back to like having good manners, being respectful. We have to build them up to face the realities of the world today. It is. I think that the absolute majority of this falls on parents.
So, and I wanted to make a point with you that I don't think that Sandra shared about on the Plainview problem.
Yeah.
The superintendent had this happen at his last superintendent job, and here's the key to this: the last superintendent job, which was in the Tucson area, the same situation happened. They paid him out of his contract, went into a non-disclosure agreement. So Olivia, to your point on school boards, the school districts physically go into non-disclosure agreements to where you just erase that history. So this bad situation goes to the next school district because they're not allowed to know about performance. So this is a job interview, and you can no longer say, you know what, that's not the best school superintendent. Here's what happened to my kid over here. And we had to wait for this to come out and for someone back in Arizona to say, hey, that superintendent that had the sexual assault in his school, it was just kids being kids, even though it was a 6-year-old forced to give a blowjob, and she hit the kid several times, and there were screams, there were not screams, there were yelling, there were other kids saying, hey, that she said stop, she said no, and it never made it to there. The school superintendent had a CPS person come in an interview. The CPS individual did not have the same story as what the school investigation was. And keep this in mind, the schools, when it comes to the police departments, those police departments answer to the superintendent. So the police officers who are supposed to be there for law and order and justice of the victim and of the situation, they are forced to be loyal and subservient to the superintendent, even whenever the superintendent or the school district may be in the wrong.
And
They victimize the victims over and over again.
You bring up such a good point. In Texas, safety, we just passed a bill that's going to give us a certain allotment per student per year for safety measures. So a lot of districts are bringing in, they're either building their own police departments, or they're bringing in, like we do, we partner with our county. You're shaking your head. As a parent, and I can speak, I'm not speaking as a board member, but as a parent on this, I don't support the building of internal police departments for that reason. Go to your counties, work with your, out here, we're outside of cities. So we have an amazing sheriff's department, amazing constable, but you're right. A lot of these cases where we have found that information was suppressed, it was because the police departments were internal.
So to your point there really quick, Olivia. So we work with the Texas Sheriff's Association with several of their individuals on and we have a task force. In 2018, after the Santa Fe school shooting, and keep this in mind, the police officer that acted in the Santa Fe school shooting that was actually shot, he physically worked in the worst ghetto district in the city of Houston as a Houston police officer. Never been shot before, takes a retirement job to go be a rent-a-cop and he was a good dude. So I don't want to. What's that?
Was he a school resource officer?
He was a school resource officer that was retired from being a police officer in the worst ghetto in Houston. Okay. He is the one who physically engaged in the Santa Fe shooting. That was where his life was defined as, I worked in a ghetto, didn't get hurt. I come to work at a school and I have to actually physically, I get shot, I shoot somebody, we take care of it. A couple of months later, my school, where we were at, we performed in my school district up in Montgomery County with the Sheriff's Department, with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, with Greg Abbott's office. We went over a scenario, and it was a horrific scenario. And if you know me, in the military, I was a combat medic instructor. And so Homeland Security, police, fire, EMS, we went from an organized drill, active shooter drill, to the most chaotic scene you're never going to want. We had helicopters, we had actual blood, we had state legislators that participated in this, over 700 people. Guess who else was there? Mr. Pete Arredondo of the Uvalde PD, ISD police was there whenever he was with Laredo. And these folks got quality, the taxpayers in their school districts paid money to go there. Those guys got some real quality. I mean, the whole entire day. It was in the summertime. It was a great event. It was a great drill, and we went through scenarios. We talked to them about, you're the sheepdog. You're not going to engage in a kid with a gun. You're engaging with a murderer. You got a kid at that school. That kid is there to do something bad, and they don't have the wherewithal to know what's going to happen with what's going on. You fast forward to what happened in Uvalde. those folks that came, they came there so they could eat a burger, so they could hang out on our side of the state, so they could get a hotel room. And this is why it's pivotal that these school districts get rid of these ISD police, because with Travis County, Round Rock PD, ISD PD, you can see they've created a larger tax base. So it's insufficient. And the best thing of this is the sheriff is an elected official. When the sheriff has that ability, he doesn't answer to the superintendent. He doesn't answer to the school district. He answers to the voter. And he's going to make sure that that voter gets the protection that they want for their children.
Yep. I agree.
Well, ladies, we really appreciate you guys coming on. Anytime our platform is open to you, just say the word. And we would love to have you guys come back on again, whether we're talking about super moms or whether we're talking about regular current events on TV. Y'all are welcome. And guys, don't forget, you can find the link directly. You can find the link directly for Super Moms Activated on Texas Fully Loaded's website under sponsors and friends. Please make sure that you pick up this book. Walter is holding my copy.
Mine's in the kitchen. Hey, Sandra,
you will not regret it. It's fantastic.
I would love to support Jacqueline's book. Could you give away 5 of the books to your listeners, and I'll send those to you?
God.
I would love to. Absolutely. So, all right, we're going to come up with a drawing on this. So, absolutely, we're going to have fun with that. Thank you so much, ladies. Y'all are fantastic.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Y'all are fantastic. Keep being superheroes. We appreciate you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Mom.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Not by y'all yet. Almost. Well, Walter, what did I miss?
What's that?
What did I miss in the first hour?
What'd you miss in the first hour? Well, it took me a while to wake up, but hey, I got here. My good buddy Antonio was here with me. I'm sorry. I am his new brand ambassador, Anthony Aguero here. I've taken him under my wing. I'm helping him to. We're helping him to make some things happen. He's learning about life.
Are you teaching him how to social media?
I'm totally teaching him all about social media. I'm actually going to teach him how to do FaceTime lives, Facebook lives. He's going to go back in time and create this network called Border Network News. That's at this time right now, it will be 6 years old. But this is the guy right here. We're going to rebrand him as the father of the people covering the invasion, because Anthony was out there doing Facebook Lives in the middle of the night. And that's how I discovered him. I was watching my phone at 2 o'clock in the morning going, who's this dude in El Paso? And he's showing the illegals coming over then. Yeah, it was crazy. And then all of a sudden we fast forward to 2023 and we have former, I don't know what they are, but man, these people are raising thousands of dollars because they're fighting for you. They're fighting for you. And Anthony's got the coolest technology. He was with Tracker Systems. They have a camera system that the Texas Military Department was using. Because they're like, wow, that's some better stuff than what we've got. And so they were out there physically. We talked about the kids being trafficked. Anthony was the one who has the physical video of the little girl who was drugged or looks drugged. I'm sorry. We won't make an assumption. Allegedly was drugged. She was being held by a man in her arms, and the Border Patrol agents are just ushering them onto a bus. This girl is lifeless. And when he hits her with a strobe light in her eyes, she doesn't even move. Most kids are going to flinch. The other kids that were there, they flinched. But this is the kind of stuff that Anthony has been seeing. This is the kind of stuff that we've been seeing, some of the rescues that we've been involved in. He's over in El Paso. Right now, he's over here at location undisclosed, a little further south of here, there. And bottom line, all of these grifters are on TV going, look at what we're doing. We're fighting for you. We're doing this. We're doing that. And they're not getting the story straight. As a matter of fact, whenever Mr. Anthony here, Anthony, right? It's not Antonio.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's Anthony Aguero, the real Anthony Aguero.
Conservative Anthony.
Yeah. So the conservative Anthony, he's got the platform. He was deplatformed
Sit
by
closer to him.
Facebook.
It won't look weird. We'll make it weird later, but it's not weird right now.
Yeah, he was deplatformed by all the people last time. He's obviously, he didn't have to rebrand himself. It's the same old guy. But then all these other people come in and say, hey, we want to come do a tour with you. And so they're doing a border tour. He's been up there to the Colonias, which is right next door to my house, which is with the sheriffs that we're working with. And these guys are coming up here claiming all the work he's done. They've washed out his watermark on his videos that he's done. So they're stealing. These people are stealing the creative writings. It's one thing to repost. It's another to say, hey, this was mine. And
Anthony, you won't believe it, but Walter says that I have diarrhea of the mouth. We only have like 3 minutes left. Anthony, we tell us how we can find you and how we can support you, Anthony. Tell us the truth.
You guys can find me on Rumble, on the Border Wars. We're on YouTube on Border Network News. I'm very active on Twitter, Aguero for Texas. And I'm constantly giving updates and pushing content of things that we're actually doing. All of the stories that I tell are things that I've actually lived and witnessed out here. I'm not out there repeating or parroting other people's talking points. It's all my original content. And so if people are interested in my mission has evolved at the border from the migrants to just being a border dog for these children. I've become very, very well versed on being able to pick up on that. And I go immediately right after predominantly single adult males that are coming in with children. Border Patrol actually appreciates me being out there. I'm very familiar with many of the seasoned agents, not so much the new ones from this past year, but the previous years. Many of the agents are well aware of what I do and who I am. And so they kind of give me free range to be able to operate and execute because I stay out of their way, but I'm able to do my job effectively and present it to on video to show the atrocities of what's really happening out there. So we're on YouTube on Border Network News, and we are also on Rumble as Border Wars for anybody I would like to. And by supporting me, you can just simply go on there and share out the videos. That's how you can really support me and help me get the voice out. These children need a voice. They're the most helpless. And if we can't stand up for these innocent children, we as a country have no moral leg to stand on.
And Anthony, you were one of the very first people to start bringing that attention specifically about the children, about them being recycled and all of those things. That was you were kind of the whistleblower on all of that and making sure that people realized that these kids were getting fallen through the cracks, not just the sexual abuse that they were being put under, but just the fact that they were being reused and recycled as like a come into the country free card.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people are not familiar with the recycled children of the border, like we call them. These are the kids that are deliberately being brought across simply as a scapegoat, as a meal ticket for these individuals that don't want to do things rightfully or lawfully, should we say. And so what happens is these individuals, these single-age males, basically rent a kid for a couple of days so that they can cross illegally into the country, say, I have a child, and then they get free access into the country. Once they are released by DHS with this child, these individuals then turn around, feed the child back into the beast, meaning they give the child back to the traffickers who they rented he or she from, and then the child takes on this journey, comes back across the border all over again with another adult. And it's just an ongoing cycle until the child finally stays up here in the U.S., something that people will not talk about because it makes them so incredibly uncomfortable, is that a lot of these children that get brought up here, not only are they being exploited for sexual reasons, but there's also the organ harvesting element of this. A lot of these children are looked at as money bags, and they will sit in a room, keep them alive until there is a buyer in this country or across seas that is willing to fork over X amount of dollars for these children's limbs, body parts, and whatnot.
Well, guys, we have to go, but this is not going to be the last time that you see Anthony on this show. We're partnering up. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff. So we appreciate you, Anthony, and everything that you're doing out there to kind of bring awareness to what's going on. We got to go so that we don't kick off the next show. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.